concussion for nearly a week, and I was told I wasn't allowed to report it. I would not dare say I need to go to the toilet. You need a toilet again, there's something wrong with you. And I would not drink water throughout the day to try not to need to go to the toilet. I was looked at like I was stupid. I wouldn't sleep on a night. I'd come home and cry.
So today's guest is Sally Holder, who is a mum of two, an electrician by trade, and now a project manager delivering high impact construction projects. After beginning her career in the beauty industry, she retrained as an advanced electrician, earning her JIB Gold Card and SMSTS qualification to build a more secure future for her family. Her journey from the tools into project leadership reflects resilience, ambition, and a commitment to continuous growth. Sally is passionate about championing women in construction and encouraging others to step confidently into skilled trades. So thank you for joining us, Sally. It's an honour to have you here.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. So I am curious to understand, Sally. So you started working in the beauty industry, and then you made the decision to do the switch to become an electrician, and you began your apprenticeship in 2011 as the first female electrical apprentice at your college. I'd love to know what drew you to being an electrician in the first place.
Yeah, so from my early school days, um, I was really interested in hands-on, in I don't know what the name is it that they'd have now, but building electronic circuits and things. And I've got three brothers. I always wanted to play football, but in that day and age, the option wasn't there
Mm,
for it. Nothing was ever spoke about women going into construction. It was a total different time then.
yeah.
So I kind of just followed. I left school. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I did the typical. I'll do beauty. So I went to college, studied beauty therapy, worked in cosmetics as a makeup artist, and that was all okay. I enjoyed it, and then I became a mum and had two children, and I realised it wasn't that career you have a passion about. It
Mm,
wasn't really what I wanted to do, and it also didn't align with being a single mum with two children. I wanted to be able to provide for my children with a career that would give me the future for my children that I
mm.
wanted to give them. Um, and I just driving along one day, I thought I'd like to be an electrician. I'd like to have a trade. But it was such a foreign thing. I didn't know any female electricians,
Yeah.
any female plumbers, any females within the industry. So I rang the local college and inquired, and I went to the college for an interview. And at the time, as I worked in beauty, I tottered up with my hair and makeup done in my suit, and I could tell that the guys at the college thought, she's not going to last 5 minutes here. Um, but when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do
And
it,
do
and
it.
I'm going to do this. My parents said to me, "You won't do it. There's absolutely no way." Everybody
Mm,
laughed when I told them I was going to be an electrician. So um, then the hard part was finding an apprenticeship.
mm,
I applied to, to every company you could possibly imagine, and heard nothing. So I actually started college without an apprenticeship. So I did college 3 days a week and then worked in on the makeup counter 3 days a week, which was very
mm,
strange because I was
mm.
going from steel toe cap boots and tools to makeup brushes and hair and makeup. Um, and then in the school playground one day, one of the mums, whose sister worked for a large housing association, mentioned that they had a new director who was really keen on bringing women into construction.
Mm.
So I contacted her directly and she was really enthusiastic. She was like, I want to speak to you. Please, can you come in? So she arranged an interview um, with herself and the construction manager. And it was a real two-sided interview because she literally started with, I want you more than you want this. And she was really enthusiastic. She was saying how fantastic it was I was doing this. But for every positive that she was giving, he was very negative, and it was very obvious that he was not keen on this at all. He was saying, how are you going to do this with two children? How are you going to balance work and being a full-time parent? She came back with, I think we should be able to do your full-time hours over 4 days so that you have a day you can take your children to school and back. And you could just see the atmosphere was very, he was very against it. She was very for it. Fortunately for me, she was the director. So
Mm.
she kind of overruled him and said she'd like me to start. She was going to give me the apprenticeship, offer the support. So from that day, it kind of continued like that. The
Mm.
director didn't stay with the company for much longer after I started. So to start with, it was everyone referred to the director to me as Auntie Jackie. Oh, you'll have to ask Auntie Jackie. Oh, Auntie Jackie will let you do that. And the atmosphere was very much women are taking over the company because in this giant yard of construction of all men, when I drove into that yard on a morning, there's 15 vans, there wasn't a woman in sight. And then suddenly a woman director comes in and then brings a woman engineer in. And they literally saw it that women were taking over the company. So I was kind of the arch enemy to them all, which is not what I wanted at all. I wanted to be part of the team and, to be welcome. And I thought
Mm.
it's such a positive thing, how
Mm.
great to bring women into the industry. And I thought that by sticking to it and, getting on with these guys and, bringing cookies in that, that
Yeah.
accept me. But a lot of them were far too stuck in the ways. The attitude just did not change. It was downhill from there. And honestly, 4 years of hell.
Mm.
Yeah.
So when you stepped into that environment, like when did you first start to realize that it wasn't actually what you thought it was going to be and it wasn't going to be safe or supportive for you?
Day one.
Day
So we
one.
all,
Wow. So
yeah,
not even after a little while, like immediately.
no, immediately it was obvious that I wasn't wanted there. We sat round a big table on the morning and I was introduced to the team, and there wasn't a friendly face in sight. The looks, um, the construction manager said who would like to take Sally with them today. Nobody wanted to take me. It was kind of forced on the weakest member of the team that you are having her, you're taking her with you. And I just hovered about, asked questions, but was kind of ignored. I felt like I was a nuisance. If I asked questions, I was looked at like I was stupid. It was kind of because I'd gone from my background to a construction industry, I didn't know simple things that would be really common knowledge to a man. You know, drill bits, go to the van and get me a posi drill bit, go get me the impact driver, go get me, you know, general things that to them is common sense. To me, it
Mm.
was like a foreign language.
Mm.
I'd look in the back of this big van and have absolutely no idea what that was. It'd be like saying to a man, can you please get me the blending brush or the
Yeah.
blusher brush or the powder brush.
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
just isn't common sense to them. It's a different world. They wouldn't understand that. So they saw that I was there to go get this from the van, go get that, but I couldn't even do that properly. So I just became like a nuisance to them. So it was easier for me to clean the van while they did the work, or clean up afterwards while they have a coffee in the van, or, you know, as the time went on, I'd been an apprentice for a year and I barely knew how to do anything apart from stripping wallpaper, um, obviously cleaning up, making cups of tea. I kind of was there as the dog's body to do what nobody else wanted to do.
Mm,
Um, Things like core drilling in engineering bricks is extremely hard work.
mm,
So often we had new fans to fit in these properties that were really old properties. So they had engineering bricks. The guys didn't want to do the core drilling. So it became in the morning meeting, it'd be who's having Sally today. And it'd be whoever had a job that day that was hard and they didn't want to do, they'd take me. So it'd be like, oh, I'll take her today. Then they all wanted to take me because they wanted me to do the work that they didn't want to do that day.
This is the start of your apprenticeship, and I know you've shared with me in our previous conversations, like this went on for about 18 months, and doing these jobs that no one else wanted to do, you're not getting the proper training. Like when you're doing an apprenticeship, there's obviously modules that you've got to complete as part of your apprenticeship to show that you're getting the training that you need. How did all of this actually impact like your confidence and then your development as an apprentice as well? It's kind of like you're being used as a bit of a, a bit of a lackey to just do the shit jobs that no one else wants to do.
My mindset when I started was very, I'm going to prove to my children you can do anything you want. I'm going to
Mm,
show them how hard I have worked to provide for them, to give them a good future. I'm going to show my daughter, how to feel empowered. And that was how I started. And as time went on, it just deteriorated. I went from very, very confident and very keen to I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up. But that impacted me in my personal life because I wouldn't sleep on a night. My stomach would be in knots, thinking, oh God, work again tomorrow. What's tomorrow going to bring?
mm,
I'd come home and cry and try and be like, hi, kids, I've had a good day at school, trying to just, oh yeah, work
keep it
was great.
together.
Mummy's really enjoying it. I started to suffer with anxiety, which I'd never had in my life. But this wasn't just from the mental side of it. I was doing things at work that were dangerous. And when I was confrontational about these things, like safe isolation as an electrician is the absolute
Mm,
must. You don't work on live
no.
circuits. And when you're training, especially and with college, it's just part of what you do. You perform safe isolation, then you begin your work. You know you're working safely. These guys have been doing the job 20, 30 years, and you don't do that. It's a mess about, I don't think I saw a safe isolation kit, and they'd work live, or they'd say to me, put those sockets on in the kitchen, go second fix the sockets. And I'd be like, oh, I'll just go say, no, just, I've done it, it's dead, I've switched it. And they'd get so aggressive that I didn't dare over. I was brought up very, you don't cheat your elders, not to answer back. And I didn't have it in me to shout at them or say, no, I am doing this. I didn't have that confidence because I didn't want to upset them when I have to work with them
Mm,
for another however many years. I didn't want to feel like I was coming in and changing the way things are, and that I was the one that was going to change how things had always been and make work life worse. And regular, I would get an electric shock, which then made me nervous of electrics, which as an electrician, it's not great.
No.
And sometimes I'd be fitting an outside light, up triple ladders. If you get an electric shock up there, it's game over, and it wasn't just the mental side of it. Some days I'd think, I could have not come home to my children today. I've been at home with I had concussion for nearly a week and burnt fingernails from a very bad electric shock that I got, a three-phase shock in a care home, and I was told I wasn't allowed to report it. You'll get me fired, which would have happened if I'd have gone and reported it. The guy would have been fired. I would have been responsible. Nobody else. It'd have been Sally's got him fired. Sally's got so and so fired, who's our friend, who's been here for however many years. My apprenticeship would have got worse. So I kind of was backed into a corner where I couldn't. I had to just get on with it and do it. But that obviously increased my anxiety. It made me nervous of doing my job. There wasn't a person there that was checking up on me. There wasn't a person there that I could safely go to. I often thought, I wish there was a woman about, or I wish somebody would notice what's happening so that it's out of my hands. I'm not reporting it. They're seeing that the way of working isn't right. But it just didn't happen. And I think to be a good engineer, you need a good apprenticeship. You need positive experience. You need to be taught well. When I qualified, I remember going out in my van to jobs that I'd never seen or done before as a qualified electrician. And I literally had to teach myself, learn myself, when really I should have had 4 years of experience. The particular guy I was put with a lot was naturally an aggressive nature, but everybody knew that. But the guys would joke, oh, he's in a foul mood today, oh, and think it was a laugh. But I couldn't ask. If I asked a question, he'd literally say, are you thick? Are you stupid? Are you? So it got where I didn't dare ask questions because I just knew that I would be shouted at or called thick, called stupid. Yeah, I told you last week how to do that. But speak to any electrician, you're not told how to do something once and you can do it. You
Mm.
need guidance, you need to be
Mm.
repeatedly learning. It's a complicated trade. I really, really hope these things wouldn't go on now. But I also have seen young girls leave school and think, how nice, oh, I want to be a plumber, I want to be an electrician. And I don't see people completing apprenticeships. Why is there still
Yeah.
2011? I did my apprenticeship. We're in 2026. Why is there still
Mm.
no more trades, no more women in trades?
So what does that say to you? And I know that with, unlike here in Australia, there's 76% dropout in the first year and only
Yeah,
50% complete their actual apprenticeship, which can be 3 to 4 years. And that's both male and female. So that actually says a lot about everything. Now, I know when you touched on about the not reporting it, and you've got a term for that called grassing, that you would be grassing if you did that.
yeah.
So when you look at that from a cultural perspective, what does that say for you?
I was obviously the only woman. I think our mentality is different, the way we work,
Mm.
and sometimes a bit more organised, a bit more following the rules. Whereas the male mentality, a lot of the time, is get the job done. in
Mm.
and get it done fastest way and get out there. And if I had reported it, I think it would have caused, well, I did actually report it in the end. There was a grievance. They couldn't take the things that I was saying. They would all have each other's backs. They would all have the same stories. They would all deny everything. And actually, if the grievances had gone ahead, they wouldn't have had a business because they needed this workforce to run the company. I kind of would come in and be like, "Hi, how are you today?" Oh, and I'd learn which teams they liked to try and talk to them about which football teams they liked. Or I was kind of like wanting them to be my friend and like me, and was over trying. But it seemed that bringing me in disrupted everything. And as a business, it was easier to not have me there, to keep the majority and the rest of the business running as it should, and to keep the men happy because that was the workforce.
This is the thing that really astounds me, right? Is that in day-to-day society, men and women interact every day.
Yeah,
And yet you have a work environment, and it's like there seems to be issues trying to create a work environment where men and women have to interact.
yeah. And it's very strange because I, through growing up, all my friends were male. I've got three brothers, and I've always had really good relationships with men.
Mm.
It seems that out of a working environment, men I got on great with. The, it just seemed that I was stepping into their territory. I shouldn't, it's like I've overstepped the mark. I've come into their territory and I'm trying to take over their trades, and this is a man's job. And that
But
I've
this is
seen.
what's part of the problem too, isn't it? That this is why
Yeah,
women are resistant to actually enter this industry when that's the attitude and mindset that they're having to face when they go there.
yeah. I mean, I went into a local primary school. My brother's a teacher there, and he asked me if I would go and talk to them. They were doing a thing on future career prospects for the children. Um, so I went in just normally dressed, spoke to the children about what career choices they might like in the future, talked a bit about things I like to do in my spare time. I like walking, I like going out with my dog, these sorts of things. And then on the board, we put various different trades and career choices. One was firefighter, one was hairdresser, one was beauty therapist, one was nurse, and one was electrician. The children in the class were asked to choose which they thought I did for a living, what was my career.
Oh, yeah,
And 97% of the three different classes thought I was a hairdresser or a beautician.
yeah,
One or two thought I was a nurse. Not one child put me as an electrician.
yeah,
We then put options of how do you think Sally gets to work? There was a car, bicycle, van, bus. Every child chose car or bicycle. Not one child could think that I would go
mm,
in a van. So at the end, I went out of the room, changed, came in my work clothes, with my busy vest, my boots, my tools, and we told them that I was an electrician, and the class were in uproar, laughing, sniggering. They thought it was hilarious. And when we said, and this is how Sally gets to work, and a picture of my van, like, whoa. And that
yeah.
shouldn't be the reaction. But
No.
throughout all my working career on the tools, I saw that every day, and not just from children. I'd pull up in the supermarket, I had a transit van and I'd get out, I'd have my tools on me, and people would look and you'd see them nudging each other, or even when I attended jobs, I'd knock on the door. Hi, I'm the electrician. You've reported a fault on your shower. Oh, you're the electrician. And I repeatedly, day in and day out, said the same things over and over, explaining, yeah, yeah, oh, you don't see many female electricians. But
Mm,
when I worked for the housing association, there was a lot of single women and a lot of elderly in the properties, and they were more comfortable with it. They'd start
mm,
requesting me.
mm,
They felt safer having a woman in the home. And
mm.
I worked differently. I'd hoover up my mess and then I'd say, oh, shall I just run hoover through living room while I'm here? Or, if they offered me a cup of tea, I'd say, I'll do it. Do you want a cup of tea? And I'd have a chat with them. And
Mm.
people like it when you attend, generally. You're always going to have, the ones that a couple of times I had some older guys that when I'd left, rang up and requested a man came and checked it because they didn't think it was safe to use. It was checked.
My
So
gosh.
obviously there's these different, everybody is going to see it differently, but I'd just like it to be normal. I'd like it, for a workforce to be able to offer for them people that are at home on their own and maybe nervous of having men come in while the husbands are at work, or going to their elderly parents, to be able to say, oh, is there a female engineer available? But you would think that 10, 15 years later things would have changed, but they haven't.
It's these judgments and biases, like you're seeing it from school kids, that there's no way they
That
could
are
possibly
innocent. It's
comprehend
just,
that you'd be an
yeah,
electrician, and then you're seeing it right through to even other women. Oh my gosh, like you're the electrician. Geez, you don't see
yeah.
that. I mean, just how do you cope with that? Like hearing that constantly. Here you are 15 years later, and you're still hearing that.
There's a part of me that wants to go, I know why. I would never have completed my apprenticeship if I wasn't fighting for what I was, which was my children. If I'd have gone from school at 17, 18, 19 to do that apprenticeship, I'd have walked away. It
Mm,
wouldn't have been worth the stress, my mental health.
mm,
Even now, it was worth it for me. My son is an electrician now, and he was my apprentice. So, and he is so proud to say, my mum's an electrician. When my children were at school and they got the prospectus through from college, there was pictures of me in, and everyone was in the class was like, "Oh, it's your mum," and making my children proud
yeah.
made it worthwhile. But also how it's changed me as a person, the anxiety has never gone away,
Yeah.
ever. As even in the job that I do now, I sometimes think I dare ask that, I dare say that, or I'll get anxiety about a meeting with my boss, or and he'll say, he'll be like, what, why, why are you like that? But that'll never go away because I had it for 4 years, day in and day out. So that
Mm,
anxiety is there forever. Would I want my daughter to go and get a career in a trade? No, absolutely not. I would not
mm,
want her to go through that. So
mm,
if things don't drastically change in the support, then these women are not going to qualify. Or if they do, they're going to qualify a completely different person.
mm,
The resilience of sticking to it
mm.
sometimes isn't worth the lifelong anxiety.
No. And I know that you've shared with me before, that it felt like as you were going through all this, that it was like you were in an abusive relationship with 11 men. So it wasn't just one, it was like you were in an abusive relationship because of everything that was happening to you. you
It's
know,
all them little things every day, you know, the in the canteen and the sniggers and the whispering and the comments. And sometimes it's very, very hard to try and come up the embarrassment of when a comment's made to do with women, quite vulgar comments. You can't sit there and cry. You have to
mm,
try and think up some sort of banter and funny comment backs to stop your humiliation. And that
mm,
is exhausting.
mm,
And I would avoid sitting in the canteen, but then sat on your own eating your dinner in your van is even worse. There was no way round it, really.
mm,
I just wish, I mean, when I qualified, I wrote to lots of different companies saying how I thought it would be really good when they get a female apprentice to give them a mentor that is a tradesperson that has been on site, that knows what to look out for, to check in with them regularly, to
mm,
make sure that they have the correct PPE, correct welfare facilities, the day-to-day working on site. What have you learned this week? You
mm,
know, what are you learning? Are you being taught in a way that you understand? These things can go back to the employer. It's not grassing, it's a regular thing that is ticked and
mm,
looked at, that the men know this. It's a zero tolerance to things. This will be monitored daily. But nobody seemed interested. It was, we have HR, we have, you know, they all do women in construction and they all have HR and they have procedures in place that are up there somewhere, but it doesn't work. I know it doesn't work on site.
mm,
I mean, I went through a stage where I would not dare say I need to go to the toilet on site because the guy I worked with would say to me, you need the toilet. Is there something wrong with you? You need the toilet again. There's something wrong with you. And obviously, at certain times, as a woman, you do need to go to the toilet more often.
yeah,
And in front of everybody or wherever I was, if I said I needed you're going to the toilet again. There's something wrong with you. And I would not drink water throughout the day and would do everything I could possibly do to try not to need to go to the toilet. And I would hold it for as long as I possibly could for the embarrassment that would come from me saying, I need to go to the toilet. And I just want it to be different for women now. Recently, I'd say the past year or two, I've seen a massive women in construction support and a lot more coming up about it. But it's just whether the right things are going to be put in place because it's easy
mm,
to get girls interested. It's easy to go into schools
mm,
and encourage them to go into their trades, but
mm.
the right things need to be placed on site on a day-to-day basis to protect them and to encourage them and make them feel like they should be there and it's good that they're there. And
Based on your experience then, um, for all those protections and those check-ins and stuff, what would you like to see for apprentices so that they're not ever put in the position that you were put in of not being trained? You know, even that of not being able to go to the toilet is a health risk. It's actually a basic human right to be able to go to the toilet. You know, and
yeah,
especially when you're a woman and we have different things happen to us than men, you know, you need to be able to go to a toilet and attend to that. So what practical things would you like to see put in place for apprentices?
I feel they should have a mentor, somebody that they can speak to regularly, who will check that the trainings as it should be, that they're happy with who they're working with, that there's alternate if they're not, if they're
Mm,
not going to lose their apprenticeship, or well, we can look at putting you with somebody else or in a
yeah.
different department, or they don't have to stick with it if they're unhappy and it isn't working. And
Mm.
there's a way that it's monitored so that they're not having to grass, so to say, so that it's just a practice that this is how it is, this is how they'll be treated. It's a zero tolerance to bullying or, you know, banter is a word that I've literally heard that many times. It's unbelievable. I
Mm.
think there's a very fine line between banter and bullying.
Oh,
You
yes.
know, we can have a laugh. I can have a laugh. I can take banter, but there's banter and there's bullying. And when
Yes.
it's consistently all day, every day,
Yes.
it's not banter.
No. Banter is a one-off thing that's said in jest, but something that is repeatedly, and it actually makes the other person feel, whether it's unworthy or self-doubt or, lowers their confidence or things like that. It's actually bullying. So what
Yeah.
about from a leadership perspective? So if you think back on your journey, and let's say you had leaders there who actually did these things that you hope apprentices had. So if there was the regular check-ins, if you did actually have safe reporting pathways, that you had like an independent oversight, but also that people were held accountable for their behaviors, how different do you think that would be, like for the industry, but also for people wanting to come into this industry, not just women, because these kind of behaviors, women are targeted, but they do happen to men as well. The bullying and things like that as well. So if those kind of things were in place, how different do you think it would help to make this industry?
Oh, I think it'd be a huge impact. I think from day one, it wouldn't happen because men are not going to risk losing their jobs. If there's that, it is not acceptable, it will not happen, or you're not welcome to work for this company. You
Yeah.
know, it's normal that we bring apprentices in and we're proud of them and we train them to work for our company. They're the next generation.
Mm.
I think if from day one they have some sort of system that regularly checks in,
Mm.
that the awareness is there of what is acceptable and what isn't,
Yeah.
then it just, you know, people are going to stay and they're going to qualify and they're going to stick with that company and it just become normal then.
And what
I
about
think,
like when you step out from that apprenticeship and just even in the work environment, because you experienced your stuff as an apprentice, but the behaviors were happening in the work environment, regardless of what your role was as an apprentice or a qualified tradesperson, those behaviors have been normalized and they're not acceptable behaviors. So, in that regards, what would you like to see happen for accountability for behaviors that are actually causing harm to others?
I just think there needs to be just zero tolerance to it. It's not acceptable. It's, I
Mm.
often think you, you know, these people, they must have females in their life, their mum, their sisters, their partners. They wouldn't, if
Yeah,
they came home and said, this is how I was spoke to today at work, this is, you know, how my boss or my co-worker has spoke to me, they
yeah,
would be upset for their
yes,
mums, their sisters, their, so you just need to treat everybody how you'd want to be treated yourself, whether it's a woman, a man. You know, I would never ever treat
whatever. Yeah,
somebody how I wouldn't want to be treated myself. And I have a
yeah,
lot of empathy. You know, I'd never want to see someone upset. I'd never want to see someone struggle. In fact, I'd I'd go over and beyond to make them comfortable and to
yeah,
help them, and I'd get a fire in my belly for them doing well, you know,
yeah,
and I'd love the passion of seeing them do well, and it's really difficult to to see people that get a buzz out of putting you down and wanting to see you fail. And that's really hard as well when you do make mistakes
Mm.
because people make mistakes. You can't do a 4 year apprenticeship and qualify as an electrician and not have made a mistake.
No.
It used to be the attitude that if something happened to them, it was fine. Or if they wanted to complain about something, it was fine. If I complained about something, it was because I was a woman. Everything I did was because I was a woman, but it wasn't. It was equally the same as every
Yeah.
person on the
Yeah.
team. But because there was just me, I stood out. And even I was awarded Apprentice of the Year and given an award. And I should have, when I was told, oh, you've got Apprentice of the Year, normal reaction would be, oh, wow, that's amazing. I literally, my stomach dropped.
Mm.
I was like, no, no, please, no. I didn't want anyone to know. The housing association wanted to put it on the front of the magazine and do a write up about it because
Mm.
obviously diversity, that looks good. It was like Sally Sparks up the industry
Yeah.
or whatever the heading. And I knew that would be only because I was a woman that
Mm.
I had got that award. And instead of being happy, I didn't want it. I didn't want to be given it because I knew what it would cause. I knew that it would be said it was because I was a woman that I was given it.
So how were you treated after being given that award? Like, what was the reaction towards you and what happened and how did it all kind of unfold?
It was just the same with everything. It was just always because I was a woman. It was never because I'd worked really hard or because I'd stuck with a 4 year apprenticeship that had been tough and that, my college tutors were ecstatic that a female had
Mm.
qualified and stuck with it. My college tutors were really nice guys and they saw me juggling two young children
Mm.
on my own, working full time, college, studying. They saw the hard work I put in,
Mm.
but that was never seen. It was everything that I achieved to the men was just because I was a woman. And I've seen that a lot,
Mm.
even when I left that particular role and worked for another company. When I went for a promotion, which was off my own back, I worked really hard towards it. I spoke up at a very big event that I was really uncomfortable with. It was so out of my comfort zone, which then got me the offer of a new role. And a guy that I'd worked with for a few years didn't speak to me again for the month that I gave my notice and was absolutely
Gosh.
raving and was literally, his opinion was that the only reason I had been promoted was because I was a woman.
It just astounds me how this goes on because to me, we're all just people at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Regardless
all
of
trying
what
our
gender you are,
best.
what your religion is, what country you're born in, we're all just people. And
Yeah.
it just
And
astounds
I
me that,
see life like you, like that.
yeah,
I see, every person is trying the best. Everybody
yeah,
is doing life the best they can. And if everyone supported each other and if
yeah,
everyone was kind to each other and
yes,
everyone championed each other and wanted each other to do well, we would have the most successful
yes,
companies. Our work environment would be nice. We'd all be support. There's always somebody that knows what you want to know.
yes.
And if everybody helped each other, what a wonderful place it would be. But in reality, it just doesn't seem to be.
Oh my
I
goodness.
like
So
that in this
you're a
industry.
project manager now, which is a testament to your strength and resilience. How do you view leadership differently now that you're in a position of leadership yourself?
I just treat everybody how I would want to be treated myself.
Mm,
And it works well for me as a project manager that I have a trade because I meet people on site, tradesmen, for quotes and things. And it's not, oh, she doesn't understand it, she don't get this, she hasn't done this. I've
mm,
worked on site.
mm,
I understand the trades. I understand the industry. I've worked in it. And they respect that rather than somebody coming on and expecting something to be done or
mm,
and not understanding what it is they actually do or what
mm.
time it takes or, what difficult things arise. I get how difficult this is. I understand the challenges.
Exactly.
Nobody goes to work and wants to do a bad job.
No.
Nobody wants to get things wrong. People are their worst critic when they do.
Mm,
Nobody can criticize someone more than you do yourself when things
mm.
aren't going right.
So true.
But it happens. People aren't perfect and things go wrong and people make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's life. Getting a good boss and getting a good team that you work with makes the difference to your life. But if you're not happy in your job, which you are doing for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you're not going to be happy, full
No.
stop. People just need to have more empathy, be supportive, and come into the modern age.
Yeah.
Not be threatened by, not be
I love
threatened,
that.
yeah, not be threatened by a
Yeah.
woman
Yeah.
wanting to, even saying wanting to do a man's job it shouldn't have to
It,
be
well,
a man's job.
guys want to be hairdressers and nurses and let women
And
be
yeah, now,
tradies. Like, it's just let people do what makes their heart sing because that's what it's about, is being happy for what makes someone happy. So that's what it
yeah,
should be about fundamentally. So if there was a young woman listening to this right now and she's experienced, or dealing with anything that you've even touched on about what you've experienced, what would you want her to hear?
oh, what I want to say to her is it, it's not acceptable anymore. That there's people you can turn to. There's systems in place that will protect you. You need to reach out to your mentor or your leadership team. But I'm not sure them things are in place. And this is why I'm passionate about women coming into the industry and things changing. The things I would like to say to a girl now, I don't know if is in place because they're not staying, they're not completing apprenticeships, and they're not there, which shows there isn't the things in place that need to
Mm,
be. What we've been doing hasn't worked. It
no,
isn't working.
no.
We can all put things on the internet and we can all do women in construction weeks and we can all post on every poster, and every website a woman with a hard hat and a toolbox on. But that isn't working. It's encouraging them to want to do it and it looks good, but there's still only 3% of women on the tools. So
Yeah.
it's not changed. They're not qualifying and they're not wanting to stick and work in the industry.
No, no.
So we need to do something different. And I don't know what that is, but I would like to be involved with that, what that is.
Yeah. And I think there's certainly a lot happening here in Australia with different things, and it's interesting to hear, what's happening there in the UK. Australia is certainly investing a lot of money about initiatives and different things like that about, developing some solutions and running pilot programs and, hopefully there's something there that might work. Who knows? But the whole thing, I always say, it didn't happen overnight. This has been decades of getting us to where we are now, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. But
No,
people need to be actually doing something because the harm that it's causing is traumatic for people. And, like here in Australia, it's the industry with the highest mental health issues. It's got double the national average of, for suicide. And, it's heartbreaking what is actually going on. So, I'm grateful that here there is some initiatives and there is some funding happening in that regards. And it would be great if, anyone in the UK listening to this would actually consider like, well, have a look at what other countries are doing and, what could we learn from that to be able to help support our women in this industry and help them complete and help them finish their trades and get on site and be safe so that they're not being impacted. So that would be
definitely.
awesome. Yeah. So after everything that you've been through, Sally, why did you stay in the industry? Because there would have been no doubt so many moments where you've gone, why am I doing this? Or thought about maybe, this wasn't for you or you weren't learning. After everything, why are you still here and doing the amazing work that you're doing as a project manager and, this dream that you've got about being a mentor for women on site?
Everybody has something that gives them their drive.
Mm,
And for me, it has always been my children,
yeah,
making them proud. Um, that'll never change. I don't want them to see me give up
yeah,
because the advice I've always given them is to never give up.
yeah.
So I have to be an example to them.
You have to
And as
show
I
them
say,
that you can't do it.
yeah, so if I'd have, like I say, if I'd have gone into this from school, I probably would have had a whole different career.
Mm,
But they were my drive always. They kept me driven. I'm doing this for them and making them proud.
yeah,
And I still am, and that will always be my drive till my
yeah,
last breath, making my
yeah.
children proud. So
I love
yeah,
that.
that's and it makes me proud that my son is an electrician because he
Yeah,
wanted to follow in his mum's footsteps.
yeah. How
And
amazing.
he still loves telling people that, my mum's an electrician. And during
Yeah,
COVID, we worked together as a team, looking after Yorkshire Ambulance Service.
yes.
Mum and son turning up, on site doing their jobs. That's my proudest moments,
Yeah.
being able to work with my son. So that has always and always will be my drive.
I love it. I love it. Well, Sally, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey. I would like to say I'm sorry for what you've been through. No one should have to go through what you've been through. And I hope it gives you the drive now to be able to make that difference in the industry that you want to see as well and keep that fire burning and that passion and your kids are proud of you and keep making them proud about what you're going to do to be able to impact other people in this industry as well, but really grateful for your time and
So
thank you
much,
so much.
Angela. And thank you for obviously your awareness, bringing the awareness to the women in the industry. Hopefully, one day we'll see it all change.
Hopefully in our lifetime it will happen. Fingers crossed. But
Fingers
thank you
crossed.
again, Sally, really grateful for your time.
Thank you, Angela. Have a good day.